Oh my gosh.
Are we live?
Sorry, the Facebook's taking a second. Yeah, I don't know how to fix this. Hold on.
At least I didn't have 10 students texting me about how to get on, how to log on. Just 2.
So that's good. Only
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just play the video.
No sound.
Yeah. Can Carmen hear us?
maybe not.
Hello, everyone. Okay. Let's see if we're live here. You look great, Rob.
Thanks. The most stressed up I've.
Yeah, so they're fixing sound now.
It's the most stressed
There's-
up I've been in a long time.
There's a little thread going on with the messages there. Charlie, yes, can't hear sound.
Yeah.
Oh, it says we are live. That's cool.
Live, just look pretty.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, wait, so much for that.
Streaming.
Okay, they can hear us now. All right, how come you can't see me talking now?
I can.
I can see it.
Looking good.
Let me see here.
Is your video on, Gilbert?
Yep,
Finally.
everything's on. Carmen, am I live? Okay, all right. How's everyone doing? Welcome to our 3rd episode of Jazz Explorations. I'm Gilbert Castellanos, your host, artistic director, and founder of Young Lions Jazz Conservatory. And we have a very exciting program for you today. We're going to be doing a rhythm section masterclass featuring Bob Boss, Rob Thorsen, and Tyler Kreutel. But before we do that, I have been all just really pumped up all week to share this very exciting news with you. We are going to be starting our first ever Young Lions Jazz Conservatory Jazz Workshop for the month of July. It'll be a 4-week program. And we have a little video that we'd like to share with you to show you who we have on our faculty for this incredible online jazz camp. Yes, once again, that camp will feature Joe Fromm, Helen Sung, Oscar Hernandez, Marcus Princip, Willie Jones III, Graham Decter, Katie Thoreau, Jeff Ladair, Joe Bagg, Adam Schroeder, Charlie Elias, Rob Thorsen, Bob Boss, and yours truly. So that's going to be taking place July 6th through July 31st. And the online registration is live on our website now. So please log on and sign up for this incredible opportunity. Without further ado, we're going to switch it over now to the rhythm section. And we're going to start off by introducing you to Bob Boss. And before we do that, we'd like to showcase one of his students who is in one of his ensembles. And this is Savannah Michelle.
Hi, I'm Savannah Michelle. I play piano in the group Spring. This is my first year in Young Lions, and I guess what I've enjoyed most so far is all the new repertoire and all the songs that I'm learning and playing with my group. And secondly, I'm grateful for all the opportunities that Young Lions gives me and will continue to give me. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And at this time, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Bob Boss.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be involved with Young Lions. I was really pleased that Gilbert asked me to start helping to teach, and I've enjoyed meeting all the students. They're really doing great work. I wish I'd had an opportunity to play jazz when I was in high school, so I hadn't even heard it. It's quite a while ago. So meanwhile, all the people that I met through this program, especially Rob, Tyler, Gilbert, and Charlie Arbalez, I met them all on stage. So the first time we met, we were playing together somewhere. That's it's kind of a unique thing with jazz and with music that we want to talk about as a rhythm section, because there's certain things that make it work. There's little rules we follow and guidelines that make that happen so that it sounds good the first time you play together. And also we were talking, saying, you know, when you first meet someone like that and you're engaged in playing on stage, within a few minutes you realize what common language you have, what things you've both heard, that you can rely on, and you learn more as time goes on. So I'd like to start with an analogy between sports and athletics and jazz. I didn't see the connection when I was younger, but I do now. So staying on your toes is very important. Coaches always say that, and it's really important for musicians too. The phrase means being prepared, being alert and ready. You want to lean into action and be thinking ahead all the time. So when I was first learning to play music live, I got a chance to be the leader on a trio gig. I was young, so I hired a bassist and drummer who were a lot older than me and had a ton of experience. At the end of the first melody of the first tune, there was a place where we normally leave a break, a 2-bar rest. The melody ends up on the root on lots and lots of standard tunes, and whatever it was I was playing, the drummer just slammed the door. He had all the cymbals at once really loud and stopped, and so did the bass player, and there's a 2-bar break, and I went like, uh-oh, because I wasn't really prepared. I didn't know that rule yet. So I just remember saying, well, I missed that opportunity, but never again. I'll have something to play in that fill to launch the solo. So the experience reminded me of the first time I caught a pass in a football scrimmage, because I just waited long enough to say, wow, I got it. And then, bam, I just got wiped out. I got tackled from both sides. So you have to be ready to run, and you have to be ready to solo. So it's the same thing. You have to look for opportunities, be alert as a rhythm section. And as a rhythm section, you try to provide those opportunities too. You want to set up the solos so they sound really good, so they have a good firm footing to start on and support the whole time. So sports and jazz music take place in real time. You can't rely on your past success at all. You need experience, but you have to prove yourself every time. The champion golfer Ben Hogan was asked to name the most difficult shot in golf, and he said, the next one. So let's hope he'd give the same answer to name your favorite shot in golf. It might be the next one. So because if a tune is difficult, you want to give it extra attention, spend a lot of time learning it, and make it one of your favorites. So we do a lot of manipulating the form with cues and body language. That's really important, and knowing the ins and outs of that and how to read the signals and cooperate with each other. So I listened to an interview with the great drummer Victor Lewis, and he was talking about when he played with Dexter Gordon, and he realized, boy, this guy has a lot of experience. Maybe I should ask him, if you think I can do anything differently or how would I improve, just let me know. And so Dexter said, okay. He thought about it for a while. A few days later, on the way up to the stage, he stopped and turned around and said, oh, coming out of your solos. That was it. That's all he said. But that's a lot, because it goes back to being alert, being prepared, and looking ahead. And if the melody has pickup notes, you want to leave room for those instead of just playing through it to end your solo. So introducing the opening phrase, coming out of your solo, that's a really good thing to think about. The best drummers I've worked with have a way of setting you up for success. They paint the big picture. They tell the whole story. So you want to know the songs, learn them fast as you can, memorize melodies, stay on your toes and be in the moment, but think ahead too. So it's kind of like, I always say, it's like they dropped you in the ocean and said, swim in a straight line, because there's so much going on all the time. So the quarter note has to be real firm and the melody has to be in your head. Okay, so you're telling a story. Each part is important. Not only should every solo tell a story, every song should have a message, and beyond that, every set and every concert should have an overall shape too. So that's the one things you want to think about and when you're making a contribution to the music. The rhythm section has a unique role in the process. Certain combinations of players that have the empathy and the ability to communicate that provides a solo with support and inspiration. Over the years, these guys become very famous as trios, and a lot of people, different people hire them and use them because of their past record and their ability to use teamwork, cooperation, and listening to adapt to whatever situation happens. Same is true in sports. Great quarterbacks have great linemen. The high scores in basketball rely on skilled guards and passers and all that. So it's very similar in real time, thinking in real time, interacting, and each time that you do it, you're starting over. What we're after is that thing they call synergy, where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So there's individual contributions, but the music has one unified sound. One time when we went to hear, Ron Carter had a record out where he was playing piccolo bass. He was playing a solo bass, and he hired a trio of Kenny Barron, Buster Williams, and Ben Riley, and they were playing behind him, which was just great. So we'd heard the record and said, well, let's go to the Keystone Corner and go hear these guys. And we went on the Tuesday night, and Ron Carter was late. He had a recording session. So the trio just went up and played without him. Man, some of the best music I ever heard in my life. All they did was just play standards, just regular songs that everybody knows and plays. But the interaction and the ability those guys had to react to one another and make a unified statement. Every chorus seemed like just like one concrete idea, one great sound, and everything felt good the whole time. The dynamic range went up and down, and it was some of the best music I ever heard, and just by accident, because he had to stay late and do this recording session. Okay, so they had that unnameable magic that we just call music. If we had a better word for it, we'd call it that. Sometimes less is more. So I want to ask Carmen to cue up this track that I'm going to use to explain something I want to demonstrate. So 25 years ago, we recorded Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. So after the melody, then the guitar solos, then there's a bass solo, but I'm going to cut right to this other part. We're going to hear the exchange with the drummer, John Harris, because first there's a whole chorus where we play fours, and then with a nod of his head and just like a silent gesture, Marshall, let those guys have it, This wasn't planned or anything. He just thought it was building really well, so he thought guitar and bass will just lay out. So they play a whole chorus, just saxophone and drums. So this is the kind of time it's important when we say you have to be singing the melody in your head. You can't wait until 4 bars in and go, well, where are they now? You have to know where everyone is all the time. So you want to get in the habit of listening for the form just when you're listening for pleasure even. You want to let the sound just wash over you if the music's new to you, but still, you want to keep track of where we are all the time because it gets to be really fun if you do that. So let's just listen to this. This is John Harris and Daniel Jackson. Go ahead. So the guys know the form, you know, they know when to come in. Everybody knew where the top was. You can do it by counting, I guess, but it's much more enjoyable if you just sing the melody in your head and it'll come out right to the right number of beats, the right number of bars. So by manipulating the form like that, that's how things develop. So we both dropped out and it got even louder, you know, and then it built to a peak so we could come back in and something happened in there. There's a lot of communication that happens through dynamics and the resolution of phrases. Seems almost telepathic, but a large part of it is just craft. So if I conclude a solo, I might end with a loud climax or something, and look, if I just lean toward Tyler, he's going to know it's his solo. You know, if it means a drum solo. If I can make the last 8 bars into like a little conclusion, a lot of times I'll resolve the ideas and get quieter and drop off so we can go seamlessly into the bass solo. Okay? Rob will know. He'll just come right in. I don't have to say anything. He knows the baton has been passed, right? It's because you do it with a little nod like that sometimes, or just some subtle body language, because everyone's waiting for what happens next already anyway. So I was working with a trio for a while with a guitar, saxophone, and bass, and one of our regular listeners was a vocalist that we knew. So she usually sang rhythm and blues, dance music. Good singer, but I'd never heard her sing any jazz. But she decided she wanted to do a whole evening of just standards, you know, just sing some standards that told a storyline. She mainly wanted to record it to give to her friends. So she asked us about a date, and we all agreed on that. And then she said, okay, can we rehearse? And our bass player said, oh, some people really benefit from that, but not me. And he walked away. And I looked kind of surprised. And then the saxophone player said, well, let me see what tunes. And he looked at her list, and he said, oh, that won't be any problem. That'll be fun. And then he left. So I thought, well, she's pretty nervous now, so I'll get together with her once and just make sure we know the right key for every song. So I spent about an hour with her, and she kept asking, well, should we have a horn solo then, or a bass solo here, a guitar? What are we going to do? And I said, well, you'll see. You know, we'll do it. Don't worry about it. And so she didn't really know that we were going to arrange things on the fly. So once on stage, she felt it and saw how we communicated, and she said the line of sight between us was like a laser beam. You know, she backed up and said, I got to get out of the way. I'm not going to interrupt the signals here. I didn't realize she found herself moving out of the way because she'd heard us many, many times from just a few tables away, but hadn't noticed how we gave cues with just subtle dynamics, body language, and adherence to the form. And like a glance, you don't even have to make eye contact. You just lean in the right direction. Once you understand the rules, that's enough to make it happen. So one thing that Gerald said in his master class that I really liked was he said, play with clarity and honesty. But clarity that really rang true for me. So if you send those signals and make them obvious, that's really good. I've heard other people say, come in with authority. Don't just be vague at all. Just come right in and let me know exactly what you think. And I've heard other people say, that was good. You were really deliberate. So all those kind of things show the kind of focus you want to have, you know. And then when you meet a rhythm section like these guys and some of the other ones we get to play with, you develop a trust over time that's really valuable. It's just a great thing, and so we want to keep going with that. So I'll hand it back to Gilbert now, and then later on I guess we'll do some question and answers too.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Beautiful. At this time, please give a warm welcome and welcome me, help me welcoming Mr. Rob Thorsen.
All right. Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, great job, Bob. Very inspiring, too. Hearing Daniel Jackson again was, you know, most of the students listening were too young to know Daniel. Daniel was just a phenomenal pianist and tenor saxophonist that I can't even begin to express how deeply he affected my life and Gilbert's and Bob, yeah, of course, Bob and Charlie. I'm not sure if Charlie Arbalez got to work with Daniel, but absolutely fabulous musician and fabulous person. You know, so he was a mentor to a lot of us. So, which I think super important. You know, as we all learn. You know, this is primarily a rhythm section masterclass, but I'm really like I want this to resonate with the horn players too, because all this is so important. That ability. You know, you all have opportunities to play with good players, you know, at jam sessions and everything. And it's such an important part of your development. And, you know, you're going to meet different people, different personalities. I can definitely vouch that all 4 of us that are here are super going to help you out. We're going to do whatever we can. If you have a question or you're like, I don't understand what's going on in the bridge, what do I do? We're going to hook you up. Some players are super helpful that way. So it's really important to reach out, as Daniel Jackson did for us. And Marshall Hawkins has been an incredible mentor to me, as he has been to all of us. So I think that's really important as like upcoming artists. So anyway, on to the rhythm section part of this. And it's, like I said, this is all about everything. So horn players, you won't be bored either. So I call this session like finding your groove, which basically encompasses like, whether you're a horn player, drummer, bass player, guitar player, whatever, finding your own sound and your own groove is really important, because the great thing about jazz music is it's not just about one leader and then a little, a few guys in the background. I mean, there's times when it might be like that, but really there's a lot of interaction going on all the time. So there's a lot of responsibility. And interaction doesn't mean busy. It just means that you're listening and you're responding. And later on, I'm going to play a couple examples of one's a kind of busier track with a lot going on, a cool arrangement by Christian McBride. The other is a version by pianist Christian Sands, playing just an incredibly simple version of Nat King Cole's Love, Love. So that'll kind of demonstrate a few things. But like rhythm section essentials, and I wanted to say this seems so simple, but these are still things that I know all of us work on, all of us being Gilbert, myself, Marshall, everybody, we work on this daily. It's still such a part of our repertoire. And the things that I consider the super essentials are accurate time, accurate feel or groove, and not accurate, like a good feel or groove. A knowledge of music, like being like listening, but not just listening like it's kind of in the background. I mean, that's part of our lives too, but really listening, like checking it out. Like it's a great exercise to isolate and listen to a track, put on like, I don't know, some Coltrane tune or something maybe not too complex, and listen to just the bass. Like really zone into the bass. It's almost like meditating, where you're just trying to block everything else out, and do that 2 or 3 times. And then go, okay, now I'm just going to listen to the drums. I'm just going to listen to Elvin Jones and isolate that. And it'll give you a whole new perception of the music, because generally, if we're a bass player, we tend to gravitate towards the bass. We listen to that a lot. If we're a horn player, if we're a tenor player, we're going to listen to Coltrane. But being that awareness of hearing everything is going to really help you grow as a musician. And then, of course, what I call knowledge of your instrument, knowing your instrument, knowing your scales, knowing your arpeggios, knowing your songs, just all that stuff, which it's only a 4-letter sentence, but it's still like so important, and it never ends. You're constantly, I mean, I get up every morning. Sometimes I wake up like 5:30 or something. I just get up and I practice for a few hours, and it's really such an inspiring way to start your day. So with those 4 essentials, you're kind of set. And so now let's talk a little bit about the rhythm section. And I want to reiterate one thing Gerald Clayton said that really was like an eye-opener for me. And here I've been playing like 40 years, and plus my like childhood when I was playing different instruments. But he said knowing the song. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know songs, or we know songs. But then he was like, do you know the melody? Do you know the lyrics? Do you know the harmony? Do you know the different rhythms, the different rhythmic possibilities, how the melody affects the rhythm? And, if you're a drummer or you're a bass player, you might be a little lax on your harmony, or maybe you don't know your keyboard, and it's like, this is day one to start learning keyboard, because you have to know your harmony. And it makes the music so much more fun too, because you understand it. So that's really important, and I really want to applaud Gerald Clayton for sort of pointing that out. And he read lyrics to, was it I Should Care?
I Should Care.
Yeah, and it was so meaningful. And these great lyricists back in the 30s and 40s, they wrote these, well, even now there's great lyrics out, but they wrote these super poignant lyrics that really told a story, and they saved things till the end. So that helps you play a song too, when you understand that tension and resolution of a song. So knowing that's really important. Now, I want to talk a little bit about like making a song your own. Like how do you, and this could be from a rhythm section standpoint or from a horn standpoint. You know, there's different things you can do to develop a song, but like if you have a song, say just a nice old standard like Bye Bye Blackbird, something people have done like so many times, everybody knows it in and out. So what are things you can do to create something a little different with that song and something to make it unique, so you're not just playing like reading it out of the real book, playing it in 4/4, you know, playing it just kind of reading it, no intro or anything. So that leads me to like number one is create an intro, and anybody could create an intro. Tyler could create an intro on drums, Bob could on guitar, and it doesn't mean I have to say, okay, Tyler, do this Latin thing for 8 measures or something, or Bob, do a C sus chord for 8 measures. I could just say, Bob, why don't you do an intro? And Bob will take it. So it takes a certain amount of confidence to do this, but everybody at the level, I mean, everybody that's listening here, you are of the ability that you can definitely do this. And it gives a song its own vibe. And then when you do get into the melody, it's like, wow, we've kind of created this whole little thing. And the important thing is, if you did that, if you created something with it, say you had a little Afro-Cuban intro, then remember that, and maybe at the end of the song or between the solos, add that in for maybe 8 measures or 16 measures. And you listen to the greats, Miles Davis, Coltrane, like everybody, current, old, back to Louis Armstrong, this was like common stuff. So that really gives a song like its own flavor, and that's something the rhythm section can do, and you can really make it happen. So and so there's other things you can do too besides intros. There's instrumentation, like maybe you have the piano player lay out for the first solo. That's super common. Thelonious Monk did that all the time, just to add a new flavor. Like different sonic combinations is a really good idea. And also like solo order. Say if you do every song and you have, you know, sax solo, trumpet solo, piano solo, bass solo, and then trade fours, after like 3 or 4 tunes, it's going to start sounding like every tune's going to start sounding the same. So that ability to mix it up, and I'll be like, okay, we're going to do 7 Steps to Heaven, you know, if I was leader or something. I was like, Tyler, why don't you take 16 out front and then take the first solo? So you get out of the head, and then Tyler like launches into the solo, and it totally sets up a new vibe, a new feeling for it. So that's really, really valuable. So another thing I wanted to talk about was fear and confidence. So doing these things, like I just mentioned, saying, okay, Bob, do an intro. And Bob's not going to go, I don't know an intro. He's going to be like, okay, let's see, we're doing Bye Bye Blackbird, and I could do like a 3-6-2-5, like A minor, D7, G, C. So maybe he does some line, booba dooba dubba dooba 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 dubba dooba da, something like that. And so just having a few little, what do you want to say, arrows in your quiver, like little things you can do, and gradually you'll develop those, and you'll know more things you can do, more little tricks. And that sets up the vibe for the song, and it sets up, if I was leader, it didn't necessarily set it up the way I was going to do it exactly. I'm trying to bring everybody into this mix, which as a rhythm section, and for leaders out there like horn players, you want the rhythm section to feel as part of this whole process going on. And nothing makes, like for me as a bass player, like nothing makes me feel better than like Gilbert will say like, yeah, why don't you just play out front for a while? And I'm like, that is super cool. You know, of course I welcome that opportunity. And at first I might be, let's see, what have I got going? But then once you start playing, you get it. And he's saying, I believe in you. I have confidence in you. And so you take that and you run with it. So that's so important. So we all, excuse me, we all have fear, that's for sure. And especially when you're starting, that fear keeps you from expressing yourself both musically and also verbally, because you might have an idea like, oh, I want to try this as a Latin, but then you're like, I don't know, maybe that's not a good idea, but any tune can work as a Latin, any tune can work as a 3/4, any tune can work as an Afro-Cuban, any tune can be done in every key. You could switch keys every 8 measures if you wanted. It could be done in 13/8. So don't be fearful, and know that you are your own unique voice, and you have a lot of validity to that, because we all have our own sound, and it also kind of that ties in with not comparing yourself to others, because that also can be, if I'm playing some solo and then I'm kind of like, oh man, what would Christian McBride do here? All of a sudden, it's not Rob Thorsen. I'm thinking Christian McBride, and I'm not Christian McBride, although I wouldn't mind being Christian McBride. There's inspiration, but then you also don't want to limit yourself. Okay, so a couple other things. Let's listen to my songs. I brought a couple tunes to listen to, and then I'll talk a little bit after that. So the first one is Tangerine, which is a nice old standard, kind of like a Bye Bye Blackbird type of tune. And it's the Christian McBride trio with Kristen Sands, wonderful pianist, and Jerome Jennings on drums. And they took this nice standard. You'll hear when the melody comes in, but they added this hip little intro to it, and it gives a super vibe for the whole song. And they go back, we're not going to listen to the whole song, but they go back to that intro at the end and also between solos. And the second one, I don't know if Carmen will play these back to back, but the second one will actually be the Kristen Sands trio doing Nat King Cole's Love. So Carmen, if you're ready, go ahead and fire those up. Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much, Carmen. For our administrator and person behind all this is Carmen Murray today, so I want to thank her for doing all this and pulling it off. So that was, once again, that was Kristen McBride playing. So they took that cool little intro figure, boo doo 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 doo, that little figure, and kind of it set up the vibe for the whole tune. The second tune I'm going to play is much more minimalist. So it really shows you, as a rhythm section, you have so much freedom. You're constantly making decisions like what kind of vibe do you want to play? And some of it's set up by the horn player or the leaders, or just, maybe you have a concept before, but the malleability to always switch gears, and like a new solo starts, you kind of slow down, not slow down physically, but switch gears, put it into the second gear and kind of like build it back up. And that's not even a necessary thing. Maybe somebody comes in, the soloist comes in, for example, Joshua White, he comes in and often it's pretty fiery from the get-go. So, Tyler and I aren't going to lay back. We're going to be like digging in. So you're adjusting, but it's all about listening. You always got to use your ears. So here is Christian Sands Trio with Yasushi Nakamura on bass. And honestly, I'm not sure who the drummer is, so if somebody can point out who the drummer is, that would be great. Cool. Okay, so that was Christian Sands doing a totally different vibe, using like so much space. And right there, they actually added a little tag in where they were just repeating a 3-6-2-5, which Miles Davis did that on, was it If I Were a Bill, Gilbert? Yeah. And it was kind of this, maybe they cued it or something, but they would just repeat a little cycle at the end of a solo. So you could just vamp, and Christian just did that. So all this stuff you hear is fair game, and don't be shy to like come up with that. So I thought those were two really cool videos. The funny thing was, when I first watched the Chris McBride video, I didn't realize it was Christian Sands, and then I ended up having Christian Sands on both of those takes. But it also shows how malleability, how different styles, how he could really switch gears. And if you watch a bunch of his other videos, he's completely phenomenal, takes it in all sorts of different directions. So the one thing I did also want to mention, if I'm not going on too long, I think I'm okay, was faking it. Like you're on a gig, you're sitting in, you're at Panama 66, you're sitting in, the band leader calls some tune, you're like, uh-oh, I don't know this tune. I have no idea. You can either often asking, like reaching out and saying, if you're the drummer, you're sitting next to the bass player, you're like, hey, what's the form? And I'd be like, it's AABA. So you're like, okay, good. And if it's, say it's the pianist or something, he might ask, or I might say, well, it's a 12-bar blues with a bridge, if it's like Sam Jones Unit 7 or something. So any little cue you can get like that, but really the best thing you can do is using your ears, and especially the first melody through. Once the solos start, then you're kind of like, you have a little less to go on. So hearing that melody and any rhythmic hits that might happen during that first whole melody, the AABA in this case, is your ticket to survival. So, and often people don't even know, as long as you don't show that you're like a little bewildered, nobody ever knows. I mean, as far as the audience and stuff, but we all have to learn. We all went through these experiences of being on stage and being like, oh my gosh. And when that happens, the next thing you're going to do as soon as you get home that night, it's, if you're Tyler Kreutel, it's 2:30 in the morning, but you're going to look up that tune and you're going to be like, I'm going to learn that tune, and you're never going to forget it again. So that's like the best learning experiences of all. So in closing, love the music, express yourself, don't be fearful, and we all have a unique like personality as people and as musicians. So bring that to the table, express yourself, and don't feel like you have to be, we all study the masters, but at a certain point you're going to break off and you're going to be like, I'm my own guy. Here I go. This is what I do. So thank you very much. And I'll put it back to Gilbert.
Yeah, Rob, thank you. Well, I just learned a lot about that. So thank you very much. Okay, up next, someone who I really miss playing with.
Yeah.
Been, a few months now. One of my favorite drummers, and believe it or not, he was one of the original Young Lions way back many, many moons ago. We won't say what year, but at this time, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Tyler Kreutel on drums.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Is the sound on this good now? I know we were having some issues with it. Is this good?
Sounds good.
All right, cool. Thank you. So yeah, man, really glad to be here. Good to see everyone. I miss seeing everyone's face, of course, in person. A lot of really good points by Bob and Rob, the two obs.
No,
and I took a bunch of notes, and I'm going to try to kind of like touch on things that they talked about kind of from the perspective of the drums. Some of the last things that Rob was talking about is, at a certain point, getting your own sound and stuff like that. I think in regards to that, I think you can't not have your own sound. You can try as much as you want to sound like, if you're a drummer, I want to sound like Blakey, because who doesn't? So you try to sound like him, but no matter what, you can't, because it's impossible. There's only one Art Blakey, and there's only one person that can play like that. So by you trying to play like the people that you're emulating, you sound like yourself. There's no, it's impossible to truly emulate that in the way that they did it. So in my opinion, in terms of finding your sound, that's the lens to do it from, because that's what all the greats did. They checked those guys out and they tried to sound exactly like them. And in doing that, they sounded like themselves, So I think that's kind of I think if it boils down to one thing of like playing music, in general, that's what it is, is trying to sound like the musicians that you really like, picking up the things that you like about them, and the things that you don't like about them. Listen to the things you don't like about the musicians you like. Why don't you like that? Okay, well, why? What are they doing? How does that? Why do you think they're doing that? So, but as a rhythm section member, I think like the main point that I wanted to make, and I wrote it here really big on the paper, and I circled it like 9 times, is the word responsibility. Right? Because as the rhythm section, we have a huge, and particularly as the drummer, I mean, of course I think that because it's what I play, but you have a tremendous responsibility for everyone, for everyone that's soloing, for the song to get from beginning to end and have it be, what people might consider good, that's all kind of on the rhythm section. And in my opinion, on a deeper level than that, it's on the drummer first, that has to be, that's the drummer is the rug in which everyone is kind of standing on top of, sometimes they're trampling, sometimes they're stepping lightly, but, and sometimes the rug is a little bit thicker than it needs to be. Sometimes the rug is too thin. Sometimes it's flimsy, so, but that's the main word that I think about a lot. And this was kind of given to me by Gilbert. I don't know if he remembers, but I remember being kind of a little bit younger and still trying to figure it out. And Gilbert would give me some opportunities to go down and play with him at Croce's. And I remember after one of the gigs, or it was on the set break, he kind of sat me down and had the kind of the talk, like, hey man, if you're gonna come down here and play this music and take it seriously, man, like this is what you have to do, like this is the relationship between the drums and the rest of the band. And he at the time, I remember being kind of scared, because I thought this was like, this was it. This was like I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. But it was actually the opposite. It was he kind of could see something in me and he wanted me to just kind of like get on the right path a little bit and like kind of check out all the great drummer and horn player combinations. Listen to how the drummer plays with that horn player. In this instance, it was trumpet and drums. You're talking about Freddie and Lewis Hayes and Clifford Brown and Max Roach and Art Blakey and Lee Morgan, and how when you listen to those records and the videos of them playing live, that's what it is. The other musicians are there, but it's killing because Art Blakey and Lee Morgan are killing. That's why it's good, is because that's really working together, and everything else just falls kind of right into place along with those things. So that's kind of like, it's a lot of responsibility to be, to kind of have that all resting on your shoulders is a lot if you're not prepared. But that's why you have to really do the homework, which, all you guys here in the Young Lions are pretty hip, because you have someone like Gilbert to kind of show you the way, show you the right way to do stuff. These are the things you kind of want to be thinking about. But there's a lot of responsibility. So I wrote down this other thing, concept of headroom, which is I heard this from John Riley, who's a great drummer. He talks about the concept of headroom, meaning, so if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to play something that to me is at this level, I want to understand things that are much higher than it. I want to know how to play stuff that's way up here. So that way, when I'm playing the thing that's down here, you don't even have to think about it. It's like deep in your subconscious, and you're just playing it. So don't, as a rhythm section, it's not just about practicing and learning the things that you want to play. And like, okay, well, I really like these tunes, so I want to learn all these tunes. It's about learning things that you might not even want to play at all. Like, okay, I don't really care about playing an 11 personally, or 13 or whatever, but I'm still going to practice it and know how to do it. Because at a certain point, as a rhythm section, that responsibility is going to fall on me. It's going to be like, okay, man, we're doing this song with this, and if I don't know how to do it, then then we can't do it. If the rhythm section, if you don't get it, then it's not going to happen. Just like if you want to play a song that's really fast and the drummer can't play fast, then guess what? You're not playing fast. Because that's just not that's not how it's going to work. So it does really fall on you. And I was watching this. Winton has been doing these live streams every week, and I was kind of I tuned into one the other day, and he was talking about drummers, so I thought it was interesting. And he was saying, if you're the drummer, man, you got to be the hippest one in the band. Like, you have to know everything, man. You got to know the song. You have to know everything about it. You got to know all the different versions of the song that you can reference. You got to know all this stuff. You have to be the one that is leading the way. You're the one in the front with the lantern, like walking through the fog or whatever, and everyone's following you. So that's, it's a lot of responsibility, of course, but that's why it feels so great when it works out, because it's like, once you're putting the practice into actual playing, then you feel it, and then you get the gratification of like, okay, I understand how this works. And for every time you try that, it doesn't always work. Sometimes, you try to lead and you can't. Sometimes people aren't listening, or sometimes it's not always your job to lead. Sometimes it's better to just kind of open your ears up and just listen instead, and see, okay, how can I, because that's what makes effective leaders in things outside of music, are people that are good listeners. Okay, what's the problem, and what can I do to fix it? It's kind of, that's your job as a rhythm section player, is like, okay, what if you listen, if you're playing, and this happens all the time, especially in like jam session context, you're kind of listening, you're like, okay, this kind of isn't happening, it's like, we're playing okay, and we're kind of playing some solos, but something isn't there, so in that job, or I mean, in that moment, you realize that it's your job to make it interesting. There's nothing is happening to you. It's not like, oh man, this sucks, it's not happening, this is kind of boring. Well, it's boring because you're bored, so it's entirely, there's always something you can do. You can always make it interesting. There's always ways to change it up. There's no you should never take it for granted that this is how it's going to go. There's not an equation where all the horn players play and then now it's time for the rhythms, like Rob was talking about. There's no equation that has to be fulfilled. The equation is whatever you want it to be. Sometimes some of my favorite recordings and stuff like that are stuff where they just start right on the solo section. You just boom, you click play and they're just like right into a solo, and then they play for a couple choruses and then they play the head and then they go to the next solo. Just little things like that kind of, you're just challenging the I don't want to say the norm, but like the expectation that you kind of get taught in high school and kind of in college as well. At least my experience in the college jazz education program was a lot of like, why do we have to do it this way? Why does it have to go in this order? And the answer is it doesn't have to be. It does go like that because people don't try. You just don't think about it. You take it for granted and just kind of play. So and if you listen to the greats, they didn't do that. They didn't take anything for granted. They were doing those things for the first time when no one else was doing it. So that's kind of like the mindset that you have to be in as a rhythm section player. And I wrote down a little quote here from Roy Haynes, who's, of course, probably one of my favorite drummers, and he's probably the hippest drummer of all time in terms of like playing with everyone and playing in the way that he played before anyone else was playing that way. And he was talking to another great drummer, Joe Farnsworth, about comping, and he was saying, when you're comping, man, you gotta, it's like boxing. You gotta come from the right, you come from the left. You sometimes you just lean back and you block. You hit him with an uppercut, you come again from the left. So it has to be. It's kind of like a boxing match of surprising things. Sometimes setting up expectations and then not meeting them. Sometimes that happens all the time. Sometimes you set something up and then you just see what happens. Set some kind of momentum up for the horn player and then just see how they react to it. But these are kind of things that you can practice while you're playing, of course. But the way, then the question is, how do I gain all of that knowledge? And then that's the endless pursuit of like being a musician. Is like there's an unlimited amount of knowledge, especially now with the internet, and all the recordings are up. Like you can listen to pretty much everything that has been recorded, live concerts, so it's all there. We just have to kind of take it in and learn it as best as we can. I mean, as horn players and rhythm section players, but because I was talking about the responsibility of the rhythm section players, then it is really on you to know all that stuff. And especially as drummers, man, like we got to know, I tell all my students this, but like we have to know every tune. Like I really believe that. And, I'm trying to learn them all, and not even if it's a very lofty goal that like, okay, maybe you're never going to learn every tune, but as drummers, man, we can listen to a tune 2 times and it's like, okay, I got it. Like, how it goes, you figure the form out, you get the melody in your head, then you get the kind of the gaps of the melody in your head. So, kind of how to hear in between the melody and stuff like that. And then that's it, then you listen to it a couple more times and then you got it, so it's like, as drummers, man, we got to know all this stuff. We don't have to sit down at the piano, be like, okay, then what am I going to play at this part? Like, we know what we're going to play. We're going to play time, so it's kind of just about listening all the time to the music to fill your subconscious. This is I had this realization after listening to a Sonny Rollins interview where he talks about, someone asked him, Sonny, not really a great question, but someone asked him, Sonny, what do you think about while you're playing? And he just says, well, I don't think when I'm playing, because there's no time for that. When you're playing, you're acting entirely on your subconscious and the things that you've been feeding it. So the job the whole time is to continue to feed it with really good music and things like that are going to help you in the long run. And this isn't stuff. This is like stuff that's straight from like the great musicians and how they did it. So it's kind of that's kind of just the way it's always been. Okay, let me look at some other notes here really quick. Oh, right. Listening to the soloist, the power of suggestion, talking about the rhythm section and the soloist and how they talk together. A great way to learn, or at least for me, what I realize is a great way to learn, what do you when a horn player says something, what do you play? How do you respond? That's kind of the question that you ask yourself is, how am I going to respond to that? Well, how do you figure out what to respond? Well, you listen to the records, first of all, and particularly as a drummer, you can play along to and I do this all the time. You can play along to the records. We have that ability more than most other instruments. It's really easy to play along to records as the drums because you're focusing on the time. And this is what I saw another interview with Jeff Ballard, really great drummer, where he was talking about this is what he did when he was learning how to play jazz, is you put the record on and you play time to it. You put on some Miles or whatever, and you're playing along to Jimmy Cobb's ride cymbal beat. And when you hear the horn player do something that would get a reaction, when you're playing and you feel that energy building, and you're like, okay, they're gonna play something, and you want to react to it. Instead, you don't react, and you just listen to what they play. Because you can feel, when playing along to the record, you can feel that energy of like, okay, they're really building something here. The horn player is going to say something, and then the rhythm section is going to say something in response. And instead of what we usually do, which, we're playing along to it and we're having fun, so we want to play what we know. So it's like, oh man, I'm going to play this, then I'm going to hit the cymbal. But if instead, when you feel that, you just listen to what they do, then you pick that up, then you listen to it again, and then you learn that, okay, so that's one thing in your mind that you can kind of package up and be like, okay, yeah, I know that, and then you just want to kind of package as many things as you can, so that like the stuff that Bob was talking about, when you meet people for the first time and you're playing right away, they know, they're like, immediately you're hitting like checklists for people. It's like, oh, okay, I played this and he knew exactly what that meant. Boom. He knows all these tunes. Okay, good. The time is good. That's probably the first checklist actually, is like, is the time good? Usually. But the things that separate really great rhythm section players and, every instrument, really great drummers from just drummers, really great bass players from just bass players, is the focus is not on your instrument. It's on the music. The focus is on the role of supporting. That's what your focus is on. It's not necessarily about me. What am I going to play? But it's how do I affect the situation that's happening, and how do I affect it in a positive way? Hopefully it's a positive way. Sometimes you go for stuff and you trip up a little bit and it affects the music in a negative way, but that's okay, because it's always better to have gone for it than have not. I had one short little quote in relation to that. Oh yeah, more Roy Haynes. Bob and Rob, you guys are both talking about confidence and not overcoming like anxiety and not playing with fear. Roy Haynes says, play what you mean and mean what you play. I'm sure many of other people have said that, of course, but it's a double meaning of play. So you're playing what you already mean, and then when you're playing it, you gotta mean what you play. So it's both understanding what you're gonna play and then how you play it. So those both of those things are just as important. It's not just like the content, or it's not just how you play. It's the both of them together. Oh yeah, and I thought this was interesting, especially among a lot of the age that some of you guys are at the Young Lions. The tendency when you're playing, and this is the last little thing, and then we can all wrap it up, is that the tendency for that is to want to, when you're up there on stage and you're playing with a rhythm section, or when you're a rhythm section and you're up there on stage and you're playing with a horn player, when you feel that empty space, the tendency is to want to fill it, right? Because there's all that space. It's like, okay, well, I got to do something. And when you're kind of earlier on in the development stages of playing, the tendency is to want to fill that with kind of, you want to fill it because you're anxious, because you're kind of afraid of being on stage and you're kind of nervous. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to play stuff to kind of fill this empty space so it doesn't feel awkward or anything like that. But instead of doing that, if you really lean into the space of being on the stage, and maybe no one plays anything for a second, maybe you play an idea and then the rhythm section just plays time. Don't feel the need to like, okay, say something again. Sometimes it's not, you just wait, just play something and then just listen to what happens, and it's the same thing with the rhythm section. Play something and see how they respond to it. And then you're constantly gauging back and forth of how is what I'm saying affecting them, and how am I really listening to what they're playing. And then, that all ties into, setting up, like what Bob was talking about, setting up the choruses and stuff like that. That's, of course, that's what, to me, what makes Art Blakey such a great drummer, is he's constantly setting up every single soloist. He's always setting them up for this final chorus that's going to be the one. That's like, that's the chorus that everyone's going to remember. It was like Lee Morgan's final chorus or whatever, when, they're really like just going right out, but as a rhythm section, you can't do, and as a drummer in particular, you can't do that unless you're hip to that, unless you have heard that happen and how to get there. So just it's hard because there's a lot of things to think about being a drummer and being in the rhythm section. There's many things going on at the same time, and like I said, when you're playing, you don't have any time to think. So it's like when, it's kind of a conundrum. So you have to just really be filling your mind with the things that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know yet, so you want to just continue to fill that up with as much music as you can. Listen to your favorite jazz musicians and listen to everything that they've done. Don't just be like, oh yeah, Miles, man, I really like Relaxin', so I really dig that record. Like, you got to listen to everything, and listen to when they don't play, like all the stuff about the great musicians, because I think it's all there, and anything really hip that you want to play has already been played in a way hipper way by people that are way hipper than you, so like just check that out and like try to get that, like especially especially now, man, there's so many great musicians that have played. It's hard to really like talking about creating your voice, that's just just like we learn to speak English, you're emulating what you hear. So I know I was kind of all over the place trying to just touch on a couple things, but that's probably all I have for now. So I'll turn it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tyler, thank you. Some very valuable information. Yeah, thank you, guys. We have a few questions. Maybe we can open it up now for some Q&A. Let's go to, let's see here. How about from Harley James Shepard? He says, Rob, when soloing, how do you prefer your chordal instruments to comp behind you best support your solo?
What a great question, Harley. Thank you so much. That's definitely a question I get asked a lot. Different bass players are looking for different things, and in different musical situations looking for different things. I remember Charlie Hayden talking to him about it, and he never wanted somebody to play anything behind him. He just wanted empty space. For me personally, I like what I call footballs, like some nice like long notes, and it can be super cool to just what they used to call stroll, like don't play piano for a while. Like Monk did this all the time, and a lot of players did this, and not play for a while, and then maybe come in on the second chorus or come in some on the bridge. I find the more complex the tune is harmonically, the more I want some of those harmonic changes. Like if we're doing, say, Along Came Betty by Benny Golson or something that really shifts around harmonically, I don't need chords every measure, but just some outlines of when the keys really shift or when I get to the bridge. I think it helps. It's not necessarily for me, but I think for the audience, like the listening people, I mean, jazz is fairly complex anyway, and I think it helps give them more of a framework for the music. So that's, and also it depends on the density of the music and everything, but for me personally, that's kind of what I like. The more that's happening harmonically, I do want that support. But I think it's never be afraid to just chill and just be like, I'm going to lay out for a while. But then at a certain point, I think it's nice to come in, so to kind of mix it up.
Yeah, that's a great question. Another question from one of our students, Mateo Zamora, wants to know, how can a horn player lock in with the rhythm section better?
Tyler?
Sure. Yeah. I can talk about that a little bit. Well, it depends on how you define locking in with a rhythm section. That can mean a couple different things, or it could mean all of those things at the same time. So rhythmically locking in with the rhythm section, that is, it's hard for me to imagine it as a horn player sometimes because I'm like behind the drums. So it's hard for me to imagine listening to like the drums from that side of the stage, but it's really about, not like hearing the time, but really like feeling the time in your whole body. Like it can't be you can't just be listening to like the ride cymbal and the bass and be like, oh yeah, I hear it. It has to be like a full body experience of knowing really where that time is. And sometimes, depending on where you're playing, sometimes that even means just standing closer to the rhythm section so you can feel it a little bit deeper. But that's also just a practice thing, really getting, like having all your subdivisions and things down at a bunch of tempos at home. You work on playing eighth notes at like every tempo, from 0 to 1,000 or whatever. So then when you go to the jam session, any tempo that the rhythm section throws at you, you're just like, you're already kind of prepared for it. So I think it's a combination of both of those things, because you can't lock into a rhythm section if you can't lock into a metronome or lock into a record or whatever. It's in fact a lot harder to do it to a live rhythm section because there's just a lot more going on. But then the other element would be locking in, would be like with the phrases that you're playing and stuff like that. So that's about opening your ears up. But it's a two-way street. The rhythm section has to have their ears open too. That's about playing phrases and seeing what happens when you play them. How does the rhythm section respond? And then what do you say back to that? Trying to really actually have a conversation with the members of the rhythm section. I consider that also locking in, but yeah, it's about effort, like really trying is the first step, I think.
Yeah, what a great answer. This one's from Connor Gilbert. How do you Boss, you want to answer that one?
Well, your screen kind of froze up there, but I think you said, how do you best familiarize yourself with the tune, right? Is that what he said?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Familiarize yourself with the tune.
Okay. First of all, you got to learn the melody. The melody is what the only part that's really copyrighted. That's the part that people recognize. So that's the part you're going to be singing when you're soloing. So there's no limit to how many times you can memorize. Once you memorize a melody, you can work it over for years. I saw a video maybe 8 years ago of Sonny Rollins practicing My Ideal, which he recorded 50 years before that. And he was still working over each phrase, trying to repeat it, twisting it and turning it different ways. So memorizing the melody. Then the next thing is to, of course, know the harmony of the tune. You have to know all the chord changes. Then, since you're playing guitar, right, Connor, then I think trying to put the two together. So you place the melody on top of the chord changes and make a statement of the tune as a complete statement, as if you're playing it solo, so that you can hear the harmony and the melody. And a lot of tunes I have to slow down to half speed or even less and put the metronome on and play it exactly the way it's written for a while until you memorize it. But it's important to me to try and memorize it as soon as possible by playing a phrase and then walking away from it and not looking at sheet music or not playing with the record. Because there are people that can play along with the record, and after a certain point, they're actually kind of ghosting the soloist and they're not really creating the time on their own. So it's a good idea to go ahead and, since everyone has the ability to record now, just record yourself playing it, listen to it back. And listen to it a couple days later, too. Don't listen to it immediately sometimes, because it's hard to be objective that way. Just make a little backlog of the tune and then go back and hear it in a couple days, see which parts you didn't phrase correctly. And, like a lot of people say, learn the lyrics to a song. That's important, too, because it helps you know what the original mood of is, even though we can change things up. We can do things a bunch of different ways. But the lyrics... And then all the different, like Tyler was saying, all the different recordings of it. There's so many different ways these tunes can be played. And if you listen to 5 or 6 different guitar players even play the song, you're going to get a few different takes on it. Like All the Things You Are. Barney Kessel played like in a ballad medley. Wes Montgomery recorded it really slow. Pat Metheny's blazing fast. So and everywhere in between. Jim Hull and Pat did it in 3. So you listen to all these different versions of it. I just heard a version this morning of somebody posted a video of George Benson playing Stella by Starlight with McCoy Tyner. Great performance. And they played it in G, which I've heard is the original key. Most everybody plays it in B flat. But the next thing to do once you know the tune, try playing it in different keys. That's one of the advantages of working with singers, that they'll have to match the range of their voice, So you have to change it to a key that's comfortable for them. And then you have to make sure you can play it in that key, and you move it around and try it in different keys. That way you know the interval movement too. So if you know the chord structure, the way the tune moves, it's 3, 6, 2, 5, and then it goes up a fourth, and then the numbers. Then it's easier to do it in every key if we analyze it intervallically. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Let's maybe cover a couple of more questions. We may have to wrap it up soon. This one's from John Murray. Yes. Rob?
Oh yeah, I had a quick. One
Rob?
of my students had emailed in a question and it wasn't on the chat thing.
Okay.
Could I? It's a pretty. It's such a cool question, and it's from my vocalist Kaya, and she asked, "How do you count off songs?" Which she was almost embarrassed to do it, but then I think about all the people I work with, and so many people have trouble counting off tunes, and I thought, what a great question. And it's so important for us to know not just how to count it, but also how to receive that count as like a rhythm section. Tyler, do you want to take this?
Sure, yeah, I can talk about it. Yeah, so the count off, I personally have had a good amount of like lecturing on my count offs as well in college and stuff, from like playing in a big band. Sometimes the director says, all right, man, you count it off. It doesn't happen often in like college big bands. They're usually pretty like up there on the stand with the metronome, and they're gonna count it off. But sometimes you'd say, okay, you count it off, and I would be like, okay, all right, here we go. 1 2 wait, 1 2 1 2 3 4. Not really confident count offs and stuff like that. But the band, or I forget who told me this, but the band is relying on the energy of the count off to carry them into the song.
Yeah.
So it has to be very, maybe not forceful or loud, because then people just laugh. If you're really like aggressive with the count off, then it's just funny. But you have to be confident is the word. I think you have to really think about the melody of the tune that you're going to play. Like think about. And don't necessarily just think about the A section. Sometimes I've been playing with people where they count a tune off, and then we get to the bridge and they're like, oh, it's too fast. It's like, well, you counted it off, man. Like, what do you want? So think about the tempo that you really want to play the tune at. And it helps to think about like the bridge, like how does the melody of the bridge go? And then try to sing it in your head and think about the tempo of that. Okay, this is about where I want to play it. And then you carry it into the count off. And, drummers, in terms of like counting it out, I know this was a singer, but I have to talk about the drums a little bit. And how drummers can carry the count off is then you play something that sets the head up. Like that's what all the greats would do, is they had little ways of setting the tune up by even just playing like a little 2-note thing before the top. You're like setting the intensity up before it happens. You're just kind of telegraphing how it's going to be, and that's the same job of the count off. So, and don't be afraid to practice it. I know it's weird to be like sitting in your room and being like 1 2 1 2 3 4, but it is a skill to work on, like speaking confidently and making sure that you have good time when you're counting it off. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes I'm a fan of not counting it off. Sometimes I hate count offs. Just play. This is like Peter Bernstein's method. He talks about it all the time, is like, I don't like this whole thing where we talk about the tune for 5 minutes and then it climaxes in 1 2. Like, why don't you just play something? Sometimes you can just start to sing a part of the melody and just listen to how the rhythm section, if they're hip and if they're listening, then they'll just start to play. Sometimes you don't need the count off. Just start playing and see what happens, especially in the kind of this stage of experimenting with playing and rehearsing and things like that. Try to not count it off sometimes. Just start playing, because there's not the count off is not a part of the tune. It's like it's the prerequisite to the tune. So don't make it like this whole, it just do it confidently, though, is the main point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think physically what people want to hear, what a rhythm section wants to hear, if it's a horn player counting it off, I think is like that. If you're in 4/4, like that snap on 2 and 4, and some people even have to practice that. Like you got to have some kind of good snap or some kind of something. So like, and you want to give people more than just 4 beats. I mean, I've heard people just go 1 2 3 4, and that gives me like nothing. Whereas if I'm kind of like, you kind of feel it, 1 2 1 2 3 4, then you totally know like where it's at. And as a rhythm section player, when I see Gilbert or somebody start to count off a tune, even before they're starting, I'm like checking out their body movement, because almost everybody starts like subdividing and feeling it beforehand. If you're counting off 3 4, often people go 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 like that. And, if it's odd meter, you just kind of decide on that, or Latin music. I think it's mostly getting it in your body and communicating that's important. So that's kind of, I hope that answers your question, Kaya.
Yeah, great answers. How about we do one more question with a short answer. This one was from John Murray. What are some of the best records to listen to that really highlight a bass drum lockup?
Rob, do you want to talk really quickly and then I'll add something?
Yeah, how about we could each do one?
Okay, sure.
Okay.
That's hard, man. Yeah.
One of my absolute favorites that probably people might not guess right away is Ahmad Jamal with Israel Crosby and Vernel Fournier, like the Poinciana, But Not For Me album, or any of the stuff they did. It's absolutely one of the most killing rhythm sections ever. So it's Israel Crosby and Vernel Fournier, and it's with Ahmad Jamal Trio, like 1958, 1960, early 60s.
Yeah, that's a really great one. And Vernel is a pretty underappreciated drummer. And Israel Crosby, those guys were kind of like not pushed to the side, but it just became, they got kind of taken for granted, especially because Miles was checking out Miles stole all that stuff. Miles would go every night and listen to them and steal it all. So it's like, those are the guys,
Yeah.
Okay, so mine, and I know Gilbert will like this one. I think I was just listening to it the other day. Lee Morgan Charisma with Billy Higgins and Paul Chambers. It's like kind of a more obscure combination. They didn't play all the time together, but they're on a couple records, and I really like that. I mean, Billy Higgins with any bass player, really, but particularly with Paul Chambers. I like that one a lot. Bob, do you have one to add?
Oh, sorry, muted there. Yeah, I was going to say Billy Higgins, Sam Jones, and Cedar Walton. You probably already heard this one, John, but the Eastern Rebellion record, with George Coleman, that's a great rhythm section. And anything they played on, they did quite a few records with Clifford Jordan on tenor. And then, of course, Red Garland, Philly Joe, and Paul Chambers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Elvin, Jimmy Garrison, McCoy. There's so many great ones.
Yeah,
and the ones you've probably heard of a lot already are some of the very best. But yeah, I like all those.
Yeah, and I saw Charlie said "Smoking at the Half Note." Yeah, Jimmy Cobb, Paul Chambers, Wes Montgomery.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, definitely. All righty. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. And before we do that, how about another round of applause for our very special guests, our Young Lions Jazz Conservatory instructors, Bob Foss, Rob Thorsen, and our very special guest, Tyler Kreutel on drums. Thank you guys for an incredible, very knowledgeable masterclass. Rob, you want to say a few words?
I had one question for you, Gilbert. What is the time frame for the jazz camp?
The time frame is July 6th through 31st. So it's a 4-week program. It's Monday through Friday, and it will be running. We'll have maybe a couple of classes a day. So everything should be done by, I'm guessing, 3 p.m.
Okay.
Midday, yeah. And we'll have a very detailed timeline up soon with the program and everything. So those are things that we're still figuring out. But yeah, I mean, we're good to go for the camp, July 6th through the 31st. Before we wrap it up, I do want to talk a little bit about what's coming up for Jazz Explorations. On May 23rd, which is a week from today, we have Idiom and Instrument, a conversation with Charlie Arbelayes, our other Young Lions Jazz Conservatory instructor. So he's going to be hosting that event. May 30th, I'll be hosting a masterclass on jam session etiquette and how to practice. Followed by that, on June 6th, we have world-renowned Willie Jones III giving us a masterclass. And so we hope you tune in. And once again, check out our website for the new first time we're doing this, our first ever Young Lions Jazz Conservatory Summer Jazz Workshop. All the information is on the website. Thank you so much. Thank you to our very special guest today. And keep jazz alive.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
I love that tune.
Yeah. Hey, Gilbert, I didn't ask yet. Is the summer camp going to be in the classroom at Liberty Station, or is it online?
No. There's none of that's happening.
Online.
It's all online.
Okay.
Yeah, this is all. I don't think anybody's doing any camp live this summer.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but
this is all online.
okay.
Yeah, so we can start definitely spreading the word. And hey, guys, that was incredible. Thank you.
Thanks, Gilbert. That went really good, I thought.
We all came up with different stuff to say.